Good afternoon, Mr. Ntuli, and thank you very much for your time. Now, as the ANC in KZN, you've called on the party to join former President Jacob Zuma's appeal case. But as amicus curiae, friends of the court, I appreciate, though, that you are a party representative, and most certainly your legal counsel will be better placed to articulate the basis upon which you would seek to join that matter. But talk to me about why you saw it important as the PEC, though, that you don't just note the judgment like some would have done. Mr. Ntuli, could you please unmute yourself? I know technology can challenge all of us. Could you please unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. You can go ahead. I hope you heard my question. Just talk to us about why you felt to not just note as the PEC, but to actually join as friends of the court.
No, thank you very much. And good afternoon to you and fellow viewers of ENCA. The fundamental question is that we are of the view that the judgment is riddled with a lot of flaws and injustice. Firstly, this judgment, for instance, arises on the matter that was taken to court by the Democratic Alliance, which was challenging a decision by the National Commissioner of Correctional Services. Of course, it has to do with President Zuma, but Zuma was not in court. But if you look at the judgment now, it says that those who are responsible to pay for the cost include former President Zuma himself. Why is that done? We are not convinced that there is a cogent reasons or justification for that. But the second issue is that the court also makes a ruling on the basis of an application made by the Helen Suzman Foundation that the period at which former President Zuma stayed at home must be discounted, which means that despite the fact that he was at home and still restricted in terms of the parole condition, he couldn't go and sleep in Durban or anywhere else outside the province without the authority of the correctional service officials. Why the court is saying that must never be considered as a period at which he has been serving his sentence, in our view, leaves so much to be desired. That is why we are very happy that the Department of Correctional Services has taken a decision. Himself, Zuma, is also taking the matter to court. So we think we need a joint effort to oppose this judgment, which in our own view does not advance justice, but instead seems to be personalizing an issue to an individual rather than dealing with a matter of justice.
Then to your proposal to join as amicus curiae, I briefly looked at the NEC meeting outcomes. We are not obviously privy to the extent of the debate in the meeting, but judging by the length of that passage on the judgment in comparison to the other matters on the agenda, the NEC is clearly not looking to fully invest itself in court processes pertaining to Zuma. They just want to allow the matter to unfold in the courts. Is this a fair assessment on my part, or there will be some sort of political work done on the ground beyond that brief passage that we saw yesterday?
Well, I mean, as you would know, the National Executive Committee met yesterday, and usually what happens in terms of how the ANC actually runs its own processes is that on a matter such as this one, which comes from a particular province, it becomes the national officials who will give a hearing to the province. The matter may have been raised in the NEC in whatever way that it was raised, but the NEC always set a process which will involve that province to come and give its own view and justification of the position that the province is appealing for the national leadership to consider. So I don't think that you should see the statement of the NEC today as a rejection of the position that we've articulated. If you look at that statement, it says the organization would be seized with the matter. And of course, being seized with the matter also includes an engagement with KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Executive Committee to understand the correctness of our position. And if the NEC feels it's not important for us to take that route, we're prepared to take the counsel of the National Executive Committee and work according to what the NEC would say is the best way forward.
Now, we've spoken to several political analysts on the issues of KZN, insofar as the ANC is concerned. They've spoke of divisions within the party, and particularly that at this point, it is the PEC that perhaps is seeking to be seen to be doing something. They've accused you guys of merely playing to some sort of optics here, that you basically do understand that there's very little input that you could have insofar as influencing the outcome, but there's political pressure where the PEC wants to be seen to be doing something insofar as Zuma's concerned, because actually some of his supporters have raised concern to say that you were quite frankly indifferent in terms of his plight for the longest time. What do you make of that?
Let me address that, because that statement from your analyst is essentially predicated on the wrong understanding. Right from the onset, when we were elected as a provincial executive committee, it's us who went to the National Executive Committee and said to them, we are of the view that our own lived experiences with regard to the JZ question and the case in KZN demands that the ANC must play a particular political role in the process. If you remember at that time, nobody was permitted to go to court wearing the regalia of the ANC, let alone to address the crowd that was attending the court case of former President Zuma. We went to the National Executive Committee and the ANC said, yes, given the experiences that we are articulating, we believe that you have a cogent explanation and justification why the Provincial Executive Committee must play a certain role. What we are not going to do, because we're not populists, we're not analysts, we're not individuals without a responsibility. We will not go publicly and divulge in detail what else are we doing to ensure that we provide support to former President Zuma. But you should know that at the time when there were certain elements in Pietermaritzburg High Court who sought to marginalize and boo us in court, it was Zuma himself who stood up and said he doesn't agree with that. The reason why he said that is because he understood, because he works within the structures of the ANC, that the booers were ill-informed. They were coming here to advance a factional perspective which is completely devoid from the actual reality and the situation that obtains between the leadership of the province and former President. But we are not populists, as I said. We're not going to stand above the halls or on top of the house and say, no. Yesterday we did this, the other day we're going to do this. We would not do that. We're in elected leadership. There would be critics of what we are doing as those voices of people who are doing nothing, absolutely nothing in support of JZ, except to look at what we have done or have not done and go to the social media and on television and elsewhere else and cast aspersions on the PEC. But the fact of the matter is that JZ himself and his family are familiar with the support that the ANC, since that decision was taken, has been provided to him throughout this period.
But a precedent calling for calm, you must admit, that goes within is part of the culture of the ANC, where they would close ranks. It would be very rare where you would see a Zuma then somehow egging people on who boo leaders of the party. But nevertheless, talk to me about the security intel on the ground. As a political party, what has your intel revealed at this point in terms of sentiment around this judgment? Is there heightened emotion similar to before, or the financial impact of the violence has led to some managing their emotions differently this time, where we might not see what we saw previously?
Well, we've seen some social media posts from certain quarters in the province and elsewhere in the country of people who are not happy. Some of them who are beginning to suggest that if Zuma is reincarcerated, certain things are going to happen. But fortunately, for us as the provincial leadership, we have 3 regional conferences sitting this weekend, which is a platform where we're going to engage with the structures of the ANC. The very structures of the ANC that, in assisted the province and the people of KwaZulu-Natal to intervene in July when there was a mayhem, a difficulty that could not be contained by the police. So we have a regional conference here in Josiah Kumete, we have one in Mosmagita, one in Gerald Kizenga. I'm quite certain that at the end of these conferences, we are going to be much more informed, much more rich in knowledge as the provincial leadership about the feelings that these delegates who represent different parts of the province have to say about the concerns relating to the recent judgment on the former President Zuma. And I think that will put us in a better place to then say what becomes the way forward. But the last thing that we're going to do as well, we have agreed as a PEC that before the end of December, we must touch base with all our structures, including regions where there are no conferences, to say to them what is our understanding of this new case and what is our own approach, and also benefit from their own insight and guidance.
I take it with the benefit of now where you've seen what unfolded before, you want to just approach this better. But then on the matter of the independence of the judiciary, even before the Concord judgment, you were speaking on the sidelines of the need for the courts to take into account political implications of judgments. Is this really desirable? Because you could set a precedence here where I have, for instance, my own issues with the law and have people causing havoc on my behalf. Then courts rule in my favor to avert that crisis. How do you see this being managed, where you constantly are appealing for the courts to take into account what's happening outside of the courtroom insofar as their rulings are concerned?
Well, I don't know whether in your own understanding you have a situation in the country where courts are absolutely devoid of what is happening outside the courtroom. If that is your own experience, then...
It never is. I mean, with bail applications, we know what happens with bail applications. Pardon me there. We know that they're not devoid. They do not divorce themselves from what happens out there. We've seen it. But in this instance, how do you see this unfolding so that we manage this process where it's not abused?
Okay, I'm glad that you are acceding to the fact that you have not had, you will not have again in the future a scenario where a court judgment or a court decision is absolutely 100% devoid from what is potentially going to happen or happening outside. We are not saying that our courts must take a political stance. They must continue to interpret the law and make judgments. But the central question that we've been seized with as an organization since July: was it worth it for an arrest of one individual, former President Zuma, for our people to lose more than 40 lives? There was no other way in which JZ could have been punished for failure to appear before the Commission of Inquiry without what then ultimately led to the loss of life. Our view as an organization is that it was not worth it. The arrest of one individual cannot be equal to the lives, not even of a single person in this country. And that is why we are saying, yes, of course, we would want to see the judiciary to attempt at all times to be independent. But when we've got concerns about the judiciary, we also do not want analysts to say, now that they've got concerns with the judiciary, they are now assaulting the independence of... It's the judiciary itself that over a period of time has always said it must always exercise its own responsibilities in a manner that reinforces the confidence of the society. Now, if there's a segment of society, in this case, the leadership of the ANC in KZN, that raises questions about the work of the judiciary, it can't be construed as an attack. The judges themselves must evaluate the work that they are doing and ascertain whether or not the issues we are raising have any substance in terms of the actual reality.
No, Mr. Ntuli, thank you very much for your time. That's Provincial Secretary of the ANC in KZN.